What's up, guys? Josh Lau here with the Card Guys, and today I'm bringing you guys my Dawnblade Dorinthea deck tech for ProQuest Singapore. Now, this is being recorded at the middle of week 2, so Enigma and Zen have LL'd. Obviously, those have tremendous implications for the deck and for the metagame as a whole. So I wanted to provide you guys the most updated and up-to-date version that I could, so that you guys could use this for week 2, week 3, week 4, and week 5. So this is a balanced Dawnblade list that has the ability to be quite aggressive. It does retain a lot of the traditional tools of Dawnblade Dorinthea, but it also has the ability to play a little bit more defensively, especially into matchups where decks just are running like 15 something D reacts, so we're gonna sidestep that. We're gonna play a longer game with them, sure, no problem. So the sideboard allows us to pivot between an aggressive, a mid-range, or a control strategy. And yeah, this deck is a great deck for metagames where uh, you need to be able to target Aurora, but you still want game into like a couple fringe decks as well. So this is a very very adaptive list. Now the metagame hasn't really completely solidified yet, but I still think that this deck will be able to handle pretty much anything. So let's just get down to the mat. Let's take a look at the whole list. If you guys want the sideboard guide for this list, that is available on the Card Guys Patreon, please consider joining. It keeps the lights on around here at the Card Guys. And well, without further ado, let's get into it. All right, guys, in front of me, I have the main board for the Dorinthea deck. Like I mentioned earlier, this is a Dawnblade focused deck. We are only running Dawnblade in this version. No Jubil, no Decimator, nothing like that. No switch into dual swords or something like that. So yeah, this is just from a first glance pretty standard. A lot of the adjustments come in the sideboard for the metagame now that Enigma has left. We are back to a more traditional threat pump plus a blue, and there's a lot of redundancy in this deck. So I guess let's quickly talk about uh, the attack reacts. If you've been watching the Card Guys for a while, I've talked about all these cards quite a bit, so I'm going to be pretty brief with this. But so we have Blade Flurry and Iron Song Response. These cost 0. These are obviously very, very good. And basically, whenever you have a chance to pair this with a Warrior's Valor, that's where you're going to get the maximum value, because it basically demands that your opponent has blocking cards or armor, and they also have to have a D-react in order to deny you from extracting the maximum value from your hand. We got 2 copies of Puncture. Obviously, this pairs very nicely with Singing Steelblade. Also, just a little bit extra attack reacts. In the 1 cost slot, this is better than Out for Blood and Stroke of Foresight. We do have 2 copies of Jagged Edge to the side, but they're not brought in for every matchup. 2 copies of Route. Normally you're running 1, but I kind of like having the extra one. Just for that turn 0 high roll, a little bit better at grinding in the late game. You can also combine Route with several of the blues for a nice big burst of damage against very defensive decks like Florian or Jarl, or decks that are trying to play for a really really long game. You also have the ability to go, Singing Steelblade into Route on turn 0 as well, which is nice. Because this deck does not really have any turn 0 high roll, so having a little bit of extra high roll potential for when you have to go first is nice to have. So those are the red attack reactions. In this second column here, we have the non-attack actions, very standard stuff. Warrior's Valor, it's so good that we're running all the copies that we can. We're running the red, yellows, and the blues. This is the bread and butter of your offense, and basically this, as long as you're able to hide 1 card, your opponent basically has to respect that it could be one of these 6 cards. If you have a Vigor token, it even expands to Puncture and Singing Steelblade, And yeah, it's the bread and butter of your offense. And because you have 9 copies of Warrior's Valor, you're often going to be able to figure out how your opponent likes to play. So when you present a Warrior's Valor in the first couple turns, you're going to get to see how they like to defend, whether they defend or not. You know, body language is also very important as well. Lots of information that you can extract. And the nice thing about having so many Warriors Valors is that you're going to get to uh, use the information that you gained during the first couple turns. Sharpened Steel, the most vanilla of vanilla cards, but it it allows you to speed up the game or slow down the game depending on the situation. It costing 0 just fits the curve nicely. I was playing with cards like Commanding Performance and Dauntless before, but being a 0 cost is a major it's really, really, really important. Also, when you play Sharpened Steel, it basically demands that your opponent did not make any shortcut or didn't take any shortcuts in their deck building, because if you present, like, let's say you present a Warrior's Valor Sharpened Steel swing, they have to have 3 blocks. And certain decks are running a very, very high density of 2 blocks or no blocks, and Sharpened Steel keeps them honest. Steelblade Supremacy, obviously, it's really good because it's a helmetless Dory card, and it has Dory in the art, so it's definitely a good card. This combines so well with Unsheathed, Determination. Obviously, it pairs with Valor. It pairs well with Valor and as Pump. So, uh, yeah, it's really good. It's definitely one of the bigger plays you're going to try to set up. There is potential to triple swing with this deck, although it is fairly rare, but it could be possible. Uh, I've talked many times about how you're supposed to save your bolters for your supremacy turn. Nothing changes here. In general, you want to hold your bolters for a supremacy turn because you're not always going to have a go again paired with it. So yeah, Unsheathed, as long as being moderately aggressive, which this deck is moderately aggressive, uh, although it does have the ability to slide into a much more defensive style if it wants to. Unsheathed just provides that nice consistency, and it unlocks. So let's say if you got a Dawnblade counter and then you drew an Unsheathed, it now lets you play a Puncture or a Singing Steelblade in tandem very nicely. Or if you have like a Vigor token, it even unlocks cards like Rout and Fatal Engagement. So again, costing 0, really important, and uh, combines well with a lot of the other cards. It literally combines well with every other non-attack action. So, yeah. Moving on to the yellows, like I said, we have Warrior's Valor. It's good. Another good card is Iron Song Determination. Now, for those of you who've been watching for a long time, you guys know that I've been waffling back and forth between including this and not. I think this is pretty good in this current metagame. It allows you to push damage at the very end of the game. It allows you to combine well very easily for a Dawnblade counter, and it even has like niche applications, like it prevents them from using the face purgatory, and there's some other things that other situations where this can come up. Now, obviously, if they have a D-react in Arsenal, this is not going to be great, but still, you can generally time this for when they come off of an Arsenal, or when you have a good idea that they do not have a D-react in Arsenal. Got 1 copy of Glistening Steelblade. The reason why we have just 1 instead of 2 or 3 is because we don't want to draw this in multiples. Very similar to Iron Song Determination. You don't really want to draw this in multiples. But this does allow you to get a significant amount of tempo, no matter when you draw this, basically. And it kind of just fills out the deck. Yeah. I've been liking having just a single copy of Glistening Steelblade. You see it early, it makes them panic because they don't know what's in your graveyard. They don't really know what your deck is like. You see it late game when they don't have D-reacts, they have to basically throw 6 down in front of this. And if you have cards like Twinning Blade and your bolter's still up, it could get really nasty for them. 3 copies of Singing Steelblade. You will notice that we're a little bit light on attack reactions. Well, Singing Steelblade basically rounds out the deck, allows us to search for reds. It allows us to search for blues in the late game, and yep, just can fix our pitch stack if we've haven't been pitching correctly. But a solid card. Also could find Jagged Edge if we need that against like Seeds of Tomorrow or the Angels from Prism. So it's a very, very good card. Obviously, you could play this on turn 0, go find Route. It's very, very nice. Got 1 copy of Twinning Blade. Having a single copy of this effect is very important. We don't have too many natural go-agains. I mean, we have Unsheath, we have Glint, we have a couple of them in the side in the blue base as well. But just having this effect is important to be able to tutor for. Occasionally, you'll get a triple hit off. Moving to the blues, we're running 22 blues. We also have 2 blues in the sideboard. This is a pretty standard blue loadout. So we're running the 15 go-agains that we can. We have Valor, Glint, Hit and Run, Precision Press, and Trot Along. Trot Along has been a nice addition to have, just having a little bit more density in the blues. That does mean that we aren't playing cards like Embolden Blade. We're not playing Provoke. We're not playing Blue, Biting Blade, stuff like that. But I found, this to be a little bit more stable of a setup. So we have a ton of gas in the late game because we have a ton of go-agains. And we're able to maintain that pressure. Whenever we get a Dawnblade counter, very, very likely we have some source of go-again, even if we don't have our boots. So basically, this allows us to snowball a bit. Once we get a Dawnblade counter, if they tried to fight us for that Dawnblade counter and we broke through, very likely we can keep up the aggression, having 15 sources of go-again. Then down here, we have 7 copies of Attack Reacts in this blue base. We got 3 Nip at the Heels. It could be Iron Song Response if there's a ton of news in your area, but I think it's okay just to run this version, which is slightly better than Blue Iron Song Response. Oftentimes, 1 damage is all you need to push damage in the late game. If you draw 3 blues and 1 of them is an attack react, then you have the blue to pay for your turn. You have a go again and you have a pump. You can extract a good amount of value from your hero ability and from Dawnblade hitting twice. We got 3 copies of Blue Overpower and a single copy of Fatal Engagement. These are the big attack reacts that help you end the game. So a simple combination would be pitching an Overpower blue with another blue and something like a Route or an Iron Song Response or a Fatal Engagement, and pitching another blue with that. That provides a nice burst of like 7 to 10 damage at the end of the game. Especially if once you've used all your Singing Steel Blades, you can really set that up pretty easily in the 3rd cycle. And yeah, you rarely need to play more than 2 overpowers to end the game, but you do have the ability to set up Route plus Blue Overpower twice during the game. So very, very, very unlikely for very, very defensive decks to be able to fatigue you because you just have too much anti-fatigue tech basically built into your blue base. So yeah, that's the main board. Nothing too surprising there. There are a lot of choices to be made in the sideboard though, so let's get into that right now. All right, guys, this is the sideboard that we are using for the Dorinthea deck. Let's go over the equipment really quickly. So we have Crown of Providence and Kabuto. If you wanted to just run Crown, totally fine. I think there are some matchups where Kabuto does definitely help. And we don't always need the Crown effect against some decks. Some decks will get a little bit more value out of the Kabuto because it can basically shut down their turn and act like a little Storm Striders for us, which is very important because if we can get to the late game with tempo, we often win because our opponent is forced to block us. And if they go down to like 2-3 cards or even 1 card, Dorinthea can handle those situations very, very well with how many blocking cards she has. You might even have armor still. So yeah. So two different headpieces. Slight consideration could be made for Balance of Justice. Now, brutes are not the most prevalent hero at the moment, but you are basically guaranteed to draw against Prism because generally the Figment of Erudition is going to flip and they're going to be able to draw 2 cards. So if Prism and Brute are really heavily represented in your meta, you could also consider Balance of Justice. In terms of chess pieces, we just have Grains of Bloodspill, so no Courage of Bladehold because we're not playing super Unga Bunga. Tunic is okay, but we aren't running that many one-cost things, so we don't really need it. We're not running things like Oasis. We don't have Shunt. It's nice to use Tunic on double CYB, but generally when we're bringing in CYB, uh, we're fat decking, so uh, the chance of us seeing 2 CYBs in the same turn is not as high. So I kind of like just having Grains there. It allows you to, if you could get a single Vigor token that could change the whole dynamic of your turn, it also just enables you to just block with all your cards, swing back 3, which is a ton of value. So yeah, just running Grains. In terms of the arm slot, running Braveforge Bracers, again, consideration for Iron Song Versus was made. But this deck is not playing like too many one-cost non-attack actions or pumps. So the value that you get from holding a blue, playing Commanding Performance, swinging, playing Out for Blood is not that high because we literally don't make those plays. So Braveforge Bracers is a little bit better in this situation. Running AB1, it gets the job done against Rune Blades and against Wizards. Well, we just have to go fast enough to kill them. Or against Verdants, we just try to heal out of range. We're running Refraction Bolters. Obviously, these are really, really good. Like I said before, you generally try to save your Bolters for a Supremacy turn, or try to set up a triple hit with Twinning Blade. Those are the main uses for this card. The longer that you hold Refraction Bolters, the more nervous it makes your opponent, because you're also more likely to get value out of Glints. Because let's say you swing without Go Again, and your opponent has a D-React. If you Glint and then they D-React, you're sad, right? So just having the Bolters around is good. Obviously, we're running Dawnblade. You could run a Decimated Great Axe. I would not hate it, but I tried to keep this deck a little bit more streamlined and focused. So yeah, and our deck does have some cards that synergize decently with Decimated Great Axe, like Sharpened Steel. So I wouldn't hate it. Down here we got 3 Poppers. I think 3 is the magic number against Prism, and this is the best Popper against Prism. It just does what it needs to do. It's 7 power, and it basically shuts their turn down. And it allows you to push damage into them, which is pretty important because you are kind of on a clock against Prism. Yeah. Speaking about Prism, we got 2 copies of Jagged Edge. Now this also has some niche usages as well against Oasis Respite and Seeds of Tomorrow and Well Grounded and other things like that. But it's basically just there to be in the deck, to be searched by Singing Steelblade, or to be put in Arsenal against certain decks. It also gives you a little bit higher damage density in your deck. In terms of defensive tools, we have Shelter and Sink Below. These are just staples of the format at this point. If you don't have Shelter, you could run Fate Foreseen. It's totally fine. But if you really want the most optimized deck, I'd be running 3 Shelter, 3 Sink. Considerations could be made for a few more D-Reacts, like That's All You Got or Fate Foreseen. But I didn't want the offense of this deck to suffer because we already have a large amount of, like, almost every card in our sideboard is dedicated to defense. So I didn't want to present a deck with too many defensive cards because the likelihood we draw 2 of them at the wrong time is higher. So yeah, I just wanted to preserve our offense, which I think the main board does have pretty solid offense. We got Count Your Blessings. Yeah, I know this is a CYB deck, but I think Dory uses CYB really, really well. And because of the mix-up potential, also, it's such a clean play with Dawnblade into CYB. And this basically gives your deck the ability to go to the late game, it also just shuts the door on certain matchups. Like Vincent and Verdance are gonna have such a hard time when you're at like 50 something life and you just block them out. Yeah, it's a solid card. You're not obviously running this in every single matchup. The matchups that you do bring this into, though, it is quite impactful because it allows you to play your whole deck and allows you to get to that situation where, okay, I know that your deck doesn't have D-Reacts anymore, and now the real game begins. And, you know, we were in a format with high amounts of D-Reacts. I think we're still in a format with high amounts of D-Reacts. So why try to bang your head against the wall trying to get through decks with 15 D-Reacts? Now, the one of those decks that had 15 D-Reacts, you couldn't play CYB that effectively against because Enigma would set up a board. But nowadays, the decks that are running 15 D-Reacts, generally, CYB just is a very, very good strategic tool against them because it extends the game, it drains their deck of D-Reacts. In terms of value, this is 30 value in terms of healing, but that means each card is worth 5, which is pretty good. That gives your deck more vitality and more resilience in a really, really long game. We've got 2 copies of Snag. I think that Assassins are on the up and up a little bit, and this does shore up certain matchups like against New and just all the Assassins. Also, it being a blue fixes the ratios because we have 22 blues in the main deck. Adding 2 Snags paired with the very high amount of yellows that we have basically means if we fat deck everything, we are 95% chance to draw a yellow or a blue, which in general is sufficient for our turns. So yeah, if you want the full sideboard guide, that is available on the TheCardGuyz Patreon right now. I do talk about which matchups to play CYB into. I think that's probably the biggest question I get. So if you want all of that, you can check that out in the link below. But yeah, I do think Dory is in a pretty good spot, built aggressively with a little bit of defense reactions, solid armor. You actually have a pretty good game into Aurora. You also have the resilience against certain like kind of combo-ish decks because you can often heal out of their combo. Obviously, Kano is still an issue, and that's a combo deck, but you could just do well against a lot of the things in the format. The sideboard is balanced, and the main deck is pretty focused, and I think Dory's in a pretty good spot. If you want to bring a warrior to a ProQuest, I would recommend either Dorinthea or the Fang deck that I put out yesterday would also be a good choice. So yeah, give this a shot at your ProQuest. I think you can, with careful piloting and good matchup knowledge, I think you can go pretty far with this deck. All right, this has been Josh Lau, TheCardGuyz. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you guys later. Take care.
Hey man, did you get the KO deck for Worlds? No one's doing that, okay? Like,
Courage to play the horse down. Don't kill him. Get greedy. Put him in the middle for now. That's perfect. All right, next year.
RTN champion.
Yeah, we're gonna have to order a couple more.
Thanks for watching the video.
Here's some more Card Guys videos you might enjoy.